Wake up and smell the coffee, Mr. LaRusso.
Extreme situations require extreme measures.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Cobra Kai Karate. It is currently 5:30 in the morning, and I just got done watching the first 5 episodes of Cobra Kai Season 6, and here's my official full review. I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm a bit disappointed. I have a lot to say, really, and I would say just the main things I do not like about it, just to get it over with, is I just kind of feel like it's all over the place. It's kind of pasted pretty badly. I mean, Kenny was there. He was a big part. We don't see him for a whole episode. I mean, episode 2, we don't see any Robby or Miguel at all. And, you know, even Kyler was kind of a big part for a while, and he just kind of leaves for a while. I feel like the episodes were too short, and they're trying to do way too much. And it kind of just felt kind of fat in his face at times. And then they kind of just pull random stuff in there, like they bring in this whole thing about Kyle's redemption, for example, or they bring in this whole thing about Daniel and Johnny fighting again, and after we're done, we're not talking to each other again. Like, what is all this? And it's just, I mean, Johnny Lee stands up in the thing and says, "I'm quitting." Like, it's just, and I didn't even talk about the last scene, and I have a lot more to say. I just want to go, I think it's probably better just to go episode by episode. And this is not going to be like a hate rant. I don't hate to see the first couple of 5 episodes. But this season, this part left me off with more concerns and worries than more excitement. And I'm sad to say that. I don't want to say that. But it is honest, and I'm always going to be honest here. I'm never going to say it's good just because it's good. I'm never going to say it's bad just because I don't want it to be good. I'm always going to be honest, and this is the honest truth, at least for me. Let's just start from the beginning. Episode 1, I think it's called Pacetime in the Valley. I would say the first couple minutes start off a bit weird. It starts off a bit awkward almost. That's the best way I can describe it. It just kind of feels like, you know, scene by scene, really, really fast and really weird, quick dialogue. It just didn't feel natural, if that makes sense. And then also, when we get to, and then Johnny and Chosen start getting in a little fight and raffle there, which at first it makes sense. It makes sense now because that's just kind of who Johnny is, and obviously Chosen was dealing with problems. So I don't have a big problem with that. I just don't know if that was necessary, like the first couple minutes. And then we see Sam and Tori starting to get along with each other, trying to at least. And then we see Kenny and Sean. And this goes into a whole thing about this episode, the Kenny and Sean stuff. They get into a whole fight here. And I understand Sean's point of view of like, you're supposed to protect him. You bring him to this like terrible place and you just leave him there. Which I understand. But what I do not like is how they get into this huge fight. And then Sean's just like, oh, they're all cool now. Like, what? So Sean, like, is completely against this. They get in a fight, and now he's like, oh, you should go to them. I don't get that. I also don't get how Kenny can easily, like, just go over it. I mean, he was at least saying strike first, strike hard, no mercy. Like, right to him. And then he just goes right there, like, 5 minutes later. I don't know. It just seems a bit weird. And then there's even, like, Stingray. Stingray was in this episode. I love that speech he gave. But it kind of was weird how he gave this speech about who Johnny is. He's supposed to be, like, this Cobra Kai guy. And Johnny looks like he's been impacted by it. But then right after he goes to Miyagi and says, like, I want to follow Miyagi ways, which I think he should do that. But after that speech, it seems a bit weird. And by the way, we see no Stinger for the rest of the season. This is a big problem with this. The pacing is bad. I'm going to be fine and clear. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The pacing was bad. Dare I say it was awful. Because there were so much times where Miguel and Robby are a big part of episode 1. They're not in episode 2 at all. Chosen, Lily. I mean, we didn't even see Chosen in episode 5. He just disappears. We see him on his phone saying he's going to go to Okinawa. Then he just doesn't show him. And then Kenny, he was in episode 4, like, having diarrhea, and then he just disappears again. It just feels like it's all over the place. It just doesn't feel like they know what they're doing. I feel like they just don't have a main focus. And the biggest problem I have with this is it doesn't feel like Cobra Kai. And I can't really describe it. I mean, how do you describe a feeling? It just doesn't feel like Cobra Kai. It doesn't have that simple vibe to it. It doesn't have that, I can't even say, it just doesn't have that feeling to it. It just feels like a commercial almost. I mean, I can't really make it make sense. It's just like, it doesn't feel like Cobra Kai. That's the best way I can explain it. Another problem, maybe they don't have enough story, but the episodes are only like 30 minutes long. Like every episode was 30 minutes besides the last one was 40. And I feel like when you're doing this part stuff, where you're going to leave, I'm not saying you're going to leave the fans, but, well, yeah, you think they're leaving the fans for the wait for the next part. You have to put more stuff into it. And I also think, like, I don't know, it probably would have done better because there's more stuff they could have done. They could have paced it better if they had more time. And I still know why they can't just make longer episodes. I mean, there's been a problem in the show ever since season 4, where it's just the pacing, and they just can't decide what character is more important and what we need to do now. And they start something and they leave it for like 2 episodes and they pick it back up. They just need to get time. and they need to get that figured out because they have a great story most of the time. I just don't think they know how to structure it well, and it clearly shows in this part. And maybe they're running out of story. I don't know, but like I feel like the pacing was just so bad, and I think it could have been so easily fixed if you just made a better time. And I probably would have a lot better review to it. But pacing is what keeps a film or movie or cinema together, and when you can't do that, whether it's good stuff or bad stuff, it's going to leave it a bad taste in your mouth. Anyway, episode 2, The Prize, picks up with a flashback of Kreese and Silver, and we see Kim Sung-young, and we see a flashback of him. And I really like this scene. I think it shows what Kim Sung-young was, and I'm happy to learn more about the Cobra Kai origins. I feel like that was a great scene there. Then there's a whole thing about Miguel trying to get in college. That's all cool stuff. And then we see this. And we see Kim Sung-young is still alive. And this was confusing. How the hell is this guy still alive? I mean, think about it. That took place like what, in like 1970s maybe? And he was at least 50. I mean, he would have to be at least 100 years old. Like, I just think that's crazy to me. But whatever. And he gets to walk around and move. It's just like, how the guy's still alive? Whatever. He gives Kreese this challenge to go to this... to go inside a cave and get a snake. And this is a scene I particularly do not like. Not only is it a bit weird, where we just see Kreese in a cage and he tries to grab this knife from a cobra. I hated the flashbacks. We have this flashbacks, and Kreese says to Johnny, basically saying like, I showed mercy to no one besides you. Which is not true. He's shown mercy to Tori when he had that face in season 4 finale where he said, Tori, you fight the way you want to fight. That was showing mercy to her. Basically, because he's basically putting his own dojo in jeopardy just for her sake. And now he just completely forgets that. And the fact that he says to Johnny, I used to show mercy. I used to only show mercy to you. Now I don't. And then he says later on, the only way to be someone with heart is heartless. And you have to show no mercy. This is not who Kreese was supposed to be. I mean, ever since you brought him in the show, you've been setting up a redemption arc. Hell, days ago, he was crying and breaking down, having flashbacks about how he treated Johnny. I mean, he had a whole flashback about how he was crying, saying how he treated Johnny so wrong. And now he's in Korea, now he's just all fine with it. Now he has a cool heart again. This is not what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be going on a redemption arc. And I'm sure he will get redeemed at one point. But you already started. You can't start a redemption, pause it for a couple episodes, and then pick it up and whenever it happens. That's just stupid. And another thing is, this whole stuff is so serious. I mean, we're going for like John Kreese get beat by a cobra, about to like die maybe. And this is right in between a frat house party. Like that's just so weird how you have a cobra fight in like a cave with flashbacks, and then right after that and right before that you have a frat party fight. Which, by the way, the frat party is also a bit weird because we have Kyler, who apparently is all buddy and buddy now, which I don't know why. And even if he is, why the hell would Miguel and Hawk be all buddy? Why do they want to help him in the first place? After what he did and just after the whole fight thing, it just makes no sense. But the frat house fight was pretty cool. A little unnecessary, but I guess it was pretty cool. And then we see Johnny trying to work there. I love the Johnny stuff. Johnny trying to like find a house, trying to provide for his family, and willing to retaliate on like his aggressive behavior. I love that character. But you throw it right in the dumpster when he starts punching people and standing him up on businesses, calling them out, and punch Danny. Listen, this is all later. But I feel like you set up a great arc and then you shove it right in the shove. And by the way, this is not a character arc you just started. Johnny and Daniel have been going on this arc forever, and now they're fighting again and again and again. It's so repetitive, so boring, and I feel like they're just doing it just to do it. There is no reason for that to be there in the plot besides it's just there. I mean, how is it going to affect the plot at all besides make the students weaker? Oh, I'm just so sick of them doing that. Now, episode 3 I did like. I thought it was a great episode. It definitely had some moments, but I still like it. It obviously starts off with the whole gender reveal party, and we find out that it is a girl in a quite dramatic way. I mean, we had Daniel looking like Thanos out there. So that is really cool to see. I'm really curious to see how they do that. I mean, Carmen looks pretty pregnant. I'm sure she'll get her baby around part 2, maybe part 3. Obviously, it'll just be a baby. There's not going to be any character arc. But I feel like that will probably be something they're going to pick up in a way future series, like 10 years from now. and that's gonna be really cool. So really cool to see Johnny being a dad, and especially with a daughter is gonna be really interesting, which probably won't be this season, but anyway. And then we get some Korea scenes of Carice, and we do see the whole, I forgot the guy's name. It's like Niao or something. I'm sorry. You guys know what I'm talking about. I can't remember his name. I'm not good at remembering stuff. But I love this character. He's really charismatic. He's really awesome. And he reminds me of like Young Chosen. So I love this new villain. I can't wait to see more of him. He's acted and played really, really well. Anyway, then we see this whole thing about Miyagi. And this is something I have a big issue with. We hear this whole thing about Miyagi, and then opening up this thing, and they find out about his past. At first, I thought he had a brother. I mean, I was freaking out. I thought Miyagi had a full-blown brother. I was like, what the hell's going on? But then I realized it's a fake number. And then apparently, Mr. Miyagi is stealing stories and assaulting people. And he also joined a Psychic Kai with blood all over him. Listen, I said from the beginning I clicked on episode 1 all the way back in May of 2020. Do not mess with Mr. Miyagi's character. And they've respected this character, done so well. And this is only the first 5 episodes. I'm not saying that we know the full story, but, and I'm also not saying Mr. Miyagi is some angel either. Obviously, he probably did some things, but Mr. Miyagi would never steal something and beat someone up. And Mr. Miyagi said inside the Karate Kid, I fight for life, not trophy. I think that just goes against everything Mr. Miyagi stands for. And I think it's just ridiculous, honestly, that they're going to do that. And that puts his whole character in jeopardy. And like I said, I don't know how they're going to deal with it. I've trusted the creators with this character, and they've done a great job of it. But what they're doing here is super risky. And honestly, I think just stay away from it. Stay away from Mr. Miyagi's past. I don't know why you have to do that. It is such a, it's such a fragile character to mess with, especially with Pat Morita's passing and the legacy of it. I feel like messing with this and trying to repaint his story in some negative way is just a bad approach. And I don't know the full story, but from the observation I make now is bad. And I do not like how I don't like the road they're starting to go on with that. Anyway, on to some other things. Then we get this whole sleep party thing of Johnny going to the sleep party. And listen, before the trailer came out, I said one of my biggest concerns was the whole pillow fight scene, because in the trailer we saw Sam and Tori having a pillow fight while laughing and giggling. I'm like, that's not what Sam and Tori do. I'm not saying they're going to be enemies, but they're not going to be like that. Well, it happened. And yes, it kind of was just a fun moment, whatever, not a big deal. And those scenes were, the Johnny scenes at that party was really funny. I mean, that was hilarious. I would say the best thing about this has been Johnny. He's been so funny. Some of the best comedy ever. But I just don't think after everything they've been through, they would be so unhappy with each other. And it's honestly just bad story writing when they're all happy with each other. And then out of nowhere, she goes, oh, you did cheat on me, or you did, move at my boyfriend. And then they just start, unleashing start unleashing all their emotions. I'm like, if you guys had these anger and, these little grudges and these little feelings inside of you, why was that not there when you guys are giggling like little girls while you're having a pillow fight? Am I missing something? And then they have this whole thing where I love the scene where they apologize, and then they all say they both sorry. I think that was a great scene. That scene I love. I feel like it's out of place, though. That scene should not have happened that fast. It should not have happened that way. It happened weird and too fast. That scene should have got more time to develop. It should not have happened in episode 3. It should have been more time to develop. It shouldn't have been, because if it would have been like Tori and Sam, they're not on the pace, they get mad, then they get in a fight, and then eventually, after Tori Moms dies, which did happen, that Tori comes to, then Sam comes to Tori, and then that's when it happens. That would have been a lot better than them being all happy and best friends, and then get mad at each other, and then be best friends again, and that's it, and then just move on. It just happened so weird. It happened, that whole apology thing happened like it was forced. It almost felt like, oh, there's something we have to do, so let's get it over with. I feel like they didn't have any time to develop it, because if they had time to develop it, we would have saw more of it, because I just think it just happened too fast and too weirdly, and it left off kind of weird. Anyway, then we find out that the Psychic Kai will take place in Spain, and then we find out that it can only be 6 people who join. And at first, I was kind of like, wait, that's a bit weird. I mean, what are you going to do with the other characters? Because some are not going to be able to get in. But then it did make sense because it is a world tournament. They're not gonna let anyone in there. So I guess that does make sense. But it does leave me off with some concerns. And I'm like, what are you gonna do with these other characters? You know, like I just don't know what they're gonna do. But that's gonna be for a later time. Let's just go to episode 4. Okie dokie. Here we are, episode 4, Underdogs, and it begins in school. We see a little bit of stuff. We see Johnny, who actually starts working at the whole dojo thing. So really, really cool. Well, not the dojo. I'm sorry. I'm being distracted here. I'm at the car dealership, which is really funny scenes. But then we see Mike Barnes come back, and I'm gonna say, Mike Barnes was written so good this part. I love him. He's not totally evil man. He's also not totally totally changed, you know, quiet man. I feel like they balanced that character so good. He had really funny scenes, and it made sense. I mean, you could say the Johnny and like, here's the thing. You could say that the Johnny and Mike Barnes scene where they fight made no sense, but it does make sense because Mike Barnes, you know, he just has his whole life ripped away from him and he just needs to fight, and Johnny's all fed up with the Devin thing. That fight made sense and it was awesome. That was written really, really well. And I'm gonna get into all that stuff later. Obviously, we get into the whole things about points and things, and somehow Mitch gets in over Bert. Seriously, Mitch. And no, I'm not calling you muscles, penis breath. But anyway, so then we have this whole thing, and it was a pretty cool thing. Anthony gets kicked out. He gets punched in the face. I'm curious on what they're going to do with his character. We obviously get the Mike Barnes versus Johnny fight, which is an awesome scene. Like I said, it made total sense, and it was fun and awesome. But then we go to the woods, and they're going to go find the flag. And this is a scene I do not like. First thing that happens, Hawk and Dimitri in a little fight about the whole college thing, and then it happens. And first off, Devin puts the latex in Kenny, and he literally starts gurgling and he starts messing up. And then we get a scene in Cobra Kai of him having diarrhea outside the porta potty. Was that scene necessary? I'm gonna be honest, like, what the frick was that? And it's like, what the hell? And it's, why would Devin do that? And that just creates a toxic environment in the dojo, and it creates an undeserving environment in the dojo. I mean, this is the Miyagi-Do dojo, Miyagi-Do. This is a real legacy about honor. Well, I guess not now because he just freaking punches and kills people. It doesn't kill anybody. But basically, I'm trying to say, the Miyagi should mean something. The Miyagi students should not do that stuff. And it should not create this toxic environment in the dojo where we have Devin doing that so she can win. And by the way, I don't think Devin would do that. And then now Anthony thinks it's Kenny. Or no, Kenny now thinks it's Anthony. And then just creates all this stupid drama for nothing. I feel like they could have handled that a lot better. And then Hawk loses basically, and Dimitri basically beats Hawk, which Hawk does get in, but Hawk only gets in because Tori leaves. Can we please stop making Hawk look like the weak guy, please? I mean, last season you barely showed anything, and then the only time you really have an important scene of him is him getting beat up by Kenny, who calls him Faux Hawk because he's on the air. I already told you how much I hate that scene. And now he's in here, and he just kind of seems like he's not really doing anything. He's just kind of walking around saying things about how he wants to go to college, doesn't want to go to college, he's at a party, and that's about it. And then he gets beat up he doesn't get beat up, he gets distracted, but he loses to Dimitri, and now he's only in there because Tori. I mean, that's to make him look weak, you know? I hate how they keep doing that. Here we are with the last episode of this part, Best of the Best, episode 5. And this episode picks up on Tori. She's a pretty big part of this episode about her mom, and we do find out that her mom does die. I think those scenes are done really, really well. I love the scenes. I feel like they were filmed really good. The acting was great, and I feel like it was necessary because as bad as it sounds, I think it's really good for Tori's arc. At least it should have been, because I feel like that would have motivated her to do what's right. But now it's motivating her to do what's wrong, which doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, we'll get to that later. Obviously, Tori, it was a really sad scene, but I think it had to happen at one point. But then we get a really weird scene. We see Kreese talking to Tori, trying to get her back. And at first I thought she was like dreaming this or something, and it was real. I'm like, wait, what? So you mean to tell me that Kreese comes back to America, tracks her down, and starts talking to her in broad daylight? I mean, you know, this guy is one of the most wanted men, like, in that whole state. I mean, this guy didn't just do anything wrong. He escaped jail and, like, beat people up. That's a pretty big deal. And now he's just in America roaming around like nothing. I mean, like, this guy's a wanted man. Are we forgetting that or something? Or I don't know. That was just so weird. But anyway, she basically tells her no. Basically tells him no, and then she goes to the dojo and doesn't tell anyone. Like she's just like, oh, I want to keep it to myself. And I'm not saying her excuse, but her reasoning is like, I don't know what to know that we're still talking. Dude, this guy's a wanted man. Like, bro, I just don't get that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, Dimitri and Hawk are still mad at each other and whatnot, all that stuff. And then we get some really funny scenes of Johnny training of the students. That was a real funny scene. I loved them very, very much. And then we get this ridiculous scene of Johnny taking a test drive for someone. And then Daniel's just training Sam and Miguel. And he just turns the car over and goes like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I'm going to teach him. You do this. Why is he so mad that he's teaching Miguel and Sam? Like, I don't get it. Like, why would he be mad at that? Someone in the comments, please explain to me why would he be mad at that. I mean, he made peace with that 2 episodes ago. I want to be Miyagi-Do. We can all train together. It's for the students. And now he's mad at it. And then after that, he goes on top of the counter and just starts saying, I'm quitting. Louis, get the things. What is going on? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to hate. I'm just being honest. Like, what is going on? Like, I just feel like they're running out of story. They don't know what to do. It just feels like stuff's happening and there's not actually a plot, or there's not even actually like character arcs going on. It's just like stuff happening. Anyway, we get this nice flashback of of Tori and her mom. That was a good scene. And we see like these things cut on her wrist. I can't tell if that was her who did that, or like maybe she had like an abusive father. I couldn't really tell either way. I'm sure they're gonna tap more into that she has a pretty roughed up backstory. And that'll be interesting. But then we get the fight. The Miguel versus Robby fight was awesome. I think this might be one of my favorite scenes in the season so far. It was really cool, really awesome, and Robby wins. Robby finally wins a fight against Miguel, which is awesome to see. And like Robby's going to be the leader now, which is really curious on what they're going to do there. Because now Miguel is going... Because let me think. This is what I thought. Robby has to win the second guy. If he doesn't, I'm going to be really mad. He has to. I mean, he lost so many times. They even brought in this whole thing of like him fighting like second place. I mean, he's lost 2 All Valleys. He has to win this. It just needs to happen. Miguel's already won something. And he's a champion at heart, so it doesn't need that. But the thing is, I really thought Miguel would win that, and then Robby would win that, so they could both win something in a way. But if Miguel loses this and the Psycho Attack guy, that's a little weird. But at the same time, you can't have Robby lose the Psycho Attack guy. A little concerning there. But anyway, on to some other things. We get this whole dramatic fight of Sam and Tori. And obviously Tori gets there. She has a whole thing. They stop the fight. She starts yelling. She goes, my mom's dead. I was like, whoa. And then Johnny and Daniel in this ridiculous fight. They start fighting about stuff. And then Johnny starts bringing up Miyagi and saying he's a bad person. Which, why the hell would he say that? And then he just freaking punches him in the face. And he says, we're going to do this for the students. But when we're doing this, I'm done. Like, what is the reason for this? This is so dramatic. I do not like it at all. And then we find out that Mr. Miyagi wasn't the Psycho Attack guy. We found blood on it. Another concern there. I don't know what that means or why they're doing that, but that is really concerning. And here's another huge concern. Obviously, the big cliffhanger. First off, the cliffhanger. Okay. The Psycho Attack guy. Before we get that, what happened to Kenny? What happened to Chosen? I mean, what happened to anybody? I mean, what's even happening in this season so far? I mean, this season's just all over the place. It feels like a drama fest. I just can't get a grip of this. I mean, the biggest problem with this, it leaves me off of more concerns than about stuff to get excited about. And if you leave off a season or any part that way, that's bad, period. I mean, if you leave it off with more concerns than excitements and stuff to be excited about, then like, what am I supposed to make of that? And this is just for me personally, and I know I barely say anything positive, and this seems like a hate video. I'm not trying to hate, and honestly, I hate to say this. I don't want to say this. I would beg, and I would literally do anything to love this season and love it as much as some people probably do. And I don't know how the Cobra Kai community is handling it. I don't know if people love it or hate it. I have not checked. So this is completely unbiased or anything. It's just how I feel, and that's just my review. This is how I have to do it. But anyway, we see the Psycho Attack guy, which, by the way, happening in episode 5. You're telling me that the beginning of part 2 is going to happen. So what happens after the Psycho Attack guy? Because you're telling me there's 10 episodes left, and we just started the Psycho Attack guy. I'm confused. And then we see Kreese walk out, which by the way, Kreese is a wanted man. He knows that Miyagi-Do's going to be there. He knows that Daniel could clearly, easily call them and put him in prison. I mean, I just don't get that at all. And then, drumroll please, we see Tori walk in, which makes no sense to me. I understand if they want to go on a character arc of maybe her going on the dark side and her coming back. That makes sense. That makes some sense. But she already been through that. And I feel like they're just reaching for an arc and they're reaching for something which does not need to be there. And also, now it leaves you off at two options, two terrible options. Well, maybe three terrible options. Either she goes in the Saikai Taikai and competes with Cobra Kai, which would be terrible. As now Tori is, now she should be. Maybe she made a moment off the emotions of things, but if she goes throughout 10 episodes and she actually goes through and fights in the Saikai Taikai as Cobra Kai, that is terrible. Number two, she changes her heart and she does not compete in the Saikai Taikai because she can't go back to Miyagi-Do because now there's only 6 people and they already have the 6 people. So she can't go back to Miyagi-Do. So that means she's just not, so either she's going to fight in Cobra Kai and go against her whole character, or she's just not going to compete in the Saikai Taikai and we're just not going to see her fight in the biggest tournament in the world. Both terrible options. Or someone's going to step down from the Miyagi-Do and let her join, which would be ridiculous on their part because now you're going to let, it's just, we also didn't see Silver at all. I mean, we barely got mention of it. Like, if you don't want to see Silver, that's fine. We have to mention him at some point. I mean, at least mention him. We're so one scene. Like, come on. This is the main villain. Should be the main villain. Kreese should not be the villain. Kreese should be going on a redemption arc. Kreese should not throw his redemption arc in the garbage and become a villain now. And just don't even so Silver. Like, seriously? Anyway, sorry for that whole complaint fest. I had to let this out. I tried to hold this in. I didn't want to say this, but I feel like I have to. And I'm actually heartbroken. Like, I never left off on any season feeling this way. It's always been excitement and happiness. Now I'm left off with more concerns than excitement. And I hate in my soul to say that, but I have to be honest. And I can only pray that there's some huge comeback and they're setting something up that I do not know. But I guess I won't know for another 4 months till November, which is November 15th, by the way. I'm giving this season a 6.5 so far. And frankly, that's being a bit generous because this season had more negatives than positives for me. On the bright side, it had a lot of cool fights, great acting, really funny scenes. But it didn't feel like Cobra Kai. It felt more like a crazy drama fest and unnecessary scenes. And it felt more of just things happening than actually a real plot that means something, if that makes sense. Anyway, guys, there's my real review. I'm officially sorry to say that I am disappointed in the season so far. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. And I don't know how the Cobra Kai fans are going to react. I'm not a hater. I would give anything to love this. I just simply do not. Love you guys. And I'm going to make a lot more videos about this. And there's still a bright side of this. I'm not going to be negative about it. I always look on the bright side of things. But I have to be real. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this. See you guys next time. I'm the regular measures. Peace out.